Alrighty then. Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Jack Yadu, always known on the whiskey streets as the Hood Sommelier. Today we go in a little bit in a different direction. Usually we're drinking whiskey, we are, drilling into a brand, want to know their mash bill and everything else that go with that. But today we are going a little different. Reason why is, have you ever wondered who actually finance all those distilleries that we praise? Who takes care of them financially when they jump in an adventure or they need capital to expand or do all the things that it takes money to actually make whiskey. Um, Fortunately, we actually have a lot of capital investment in America to help a lot of distilleries start their adventure or help them expand. Major thing that happened at the end of this year into the new year is that American Single Malt as a whiskey is now part of the TTB. What does that mean for most people? I mean, now when you produce American Single Malt, you are fortunate enough to make sure that you know the guideline, you know exactly. I feel like for a second it was the Wild Wild West out there. Everybody did the single malt the way they want to, but with that come also new brand maybe jumping in to make American Single Malt now that is part of our fabric, or some brand want to expand that operation. So who will be the people that will help them through that transaction? I was made aware that ASM Capital Partners was part of that trailblazing operation and wanted to make sure that they are helping American Single Malt really take a jump onto the market by providing capital and funding. But when I heard that, I'm like, who are these people? And what are they bringing to the industry? What makes them different than what is already out there and the people that are already out there? So I brought in the folks that actually own ASM Capital or are partner founders of ASM Capital, to actually come and tell us a little bit about it. And maybe if you're watching here as a distillery, as a a brand owner, and you maybe want to jump in, these are the people, especially you guys on LinkedIn, to connect with, to know what is it that you can do, and hopefully some of your question will be answered. Remember, you can always at any time jump into the comments and make sure that um, you ask the question. So I'm going to bring my new friends, because I may actually go and retire with them in Florida. That's my plan right now. One they told me. So it's Robillard and Hunter Robillard that I'm bringing on the show to come tell you a little bit about ASM Capital. Rob, Hunter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for
Thanks for
having us.
Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to The Truth is Barrel Proof. This is where we tell the truth, nothing but the truth. And maybe sometime we drink whiskey while we telling the truth. But today we're talking money, 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 money. The green, the only thing that make things run in the industry. Just quickly, uh, you choose who goes first. Tell us a little bit about your venture, ASM Capital Group, and who are you guys? Who is Rob and who is Hunter? I didn't want to make the relation. You have the same last name, but I would let you guys tell me about the relation between you two.
Well, we'll do that. And I want to join one of your other episodes where you're drinking whiskey. I feel left out.
Absolutely. We have a show every Monday called Mondays Suck. And you can join us. And since Monday sucks, you drink strong whiskey to make it through the blues of the Mondays.
Here we go.
I got
Oh,
some.
yeah, he got some.
Awesome. Rob, I'll let you take it off.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, Hunter's my son. And, I think when a lot of people think about funding and capital, and they think Wall Street guys, and nothing could be further from the truth as far as that goes. In fact, I don't know anything about investing. I know it's good to get in early, and it's this American single malt category that's just been formed has created, a real exciting opportunity, not just for people in the liquor industry, but people also in the investment side. But I started off in this industry back in 2001, 2002. I used to be an optical engineer for both circuit board manufacturing and the semiconductor industry. And what happened with me is I used to travel all over the world and installing these big optical inspection machines. And everywhere you went, there was either a root or a fruit or a spice that they would make it into a spirit. But being from New Hampshire, it actually kind of bothered me that there wasn't a maple. We're famous for maple. And I was so proud of me. And I would even bring things of maple syrup. But I wanted to do a maple spirit. And so, my dad is one of these handy guys. These handy guys that my dad built his own sawmill to cut his own logs to build his own log cabin. I mean, that's on the level he's at. So I downloaded the plans for a still, and I gave it to him. And 2 weeks later, he said, "Hey, your still's ready. It's out back." So I was like, and started just moonshining in my backyard as a hobby. And that's how I got started. I got into about 15 states. And since I was the first ever flavored whiskey, there was a lot of liqueurs out there, but there was no other flavor. I was the first one. So I really didn't have any competition. Now it's almost ridiculous, right? How many flavored? There'll be a birthday cake flavored whiskey out there soon. It's embarrassing. But the first one, I had no competition. So I blew up. And I went from my first year, I probably had like 2,000 cases. Then I was almost overnight, pushing 30,000 cases, 15 states. I didn't have all that inventory. I didn't have all those barrels. So I needed to buy barrels off base whiskey suppliers, right? And in 2009, there was a shortage. And what happened with me is, instead of these big companies, instead of them allocating to everybody, they cut off all the little craft guys. So all of a sudden, poof, overnight, we're out of whiskey. We don't have any supply. And that didn't really sit well with me. And it also created an idea in my head that I knew that people are ignoring the craft industry. These big corporations were just out to, flood the market with their own products, and didn't really care about the craft guys. So after I sold my brand to Diageo, I had a 3-year commitment with them. I couldn't do anything, but I knew when I got out of my contract with Diageo what I was going to do. And so what we started doing is doing barrel storage. So we started doing barrel storage geared towards the craft guys, the small guys, and helping them out. And it went really well, but you can only put so many barrels afford to put so many barrels away for people that may or may not buy your barrels. And so what we did is Hunter got into the investment side of it, and I don't know anything about investing, so I'm going to let Hunter take over from here.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. Yeah, so I grew up in the industry. Rob, who's a character, was my dad, and so I was the cool kid growing up because Rob was a moonshiner. So all my friends wanted to come over to our house to hang out, and
naturally,
yeah, of course. So I learned about the whiskey industry kind of from the nuts and bolts. I worked for my dad, worked for the family business, learned about distribution and, how tough it is to be a brand and to, get a consumer base and get a fan base going, and dealing with the logistics and finding the aged liquid and putting all of that together. So I was fortunate to get exposure to that early on. And I went to university. I was a business major, but I had a kind of expertise on the finance side. So I specialized in finance in school. And through that experience, I learned about investing in private equity funds, and you knew that they were doing things in private markets, and kind of saw this opportunity in the whiskey industry, having grown up in it and seeing that, most brands of whiskey, if you go to the liquor store today, about 70% of brands on the shelf are sourcing the liquid for their bottle. So even if they have a distillery, they may not be making all of the whiskey themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is there's many reasons, but like Rob mentioned, it's hard to project how many sales you're going to have in the future, right? Whiskey is something that needs to age in a barrel 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And you might be selling, 10,000 cases this year, but you double your sales next year. You get a, celebrity endorsement, or you get good PR, and you go from 10,000 cases to 20,000 cases over the course of a year. That's great. You've just doubled your sales. The problem is, if you're selling a 4-year-old whiskey, 4 years ago, when you were planning out to lay down your whiskey, you didn't put down enough whiskey, right?
Correct.
And That's where kind of the idea struck that, okay, you've got brands who are buying pre-aged whiskey, 3, 4, 5-year-old whiskey, and they're adding their kind of special sauce to it, right? They're blending it or they're finishing in a unique barrel, and they're coming up with their own unique recipe. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the distilleries, right? So you have these big distilleries that are making whiskey, and they have a lot of costs. So they have the equipment cost of the stills, they have the land, they have all the regulations, and they have the labor, right? And the problem is when they make that whiskey and it comes off the still, it comes off clear, as you guys know, and it needs to age. It needs to sit in a barrel for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
The hardest part of the business.
That's a tough part of the business, right? You got to spend all this money today and you can't make any revenue for 3, 4, 5 years down the road, right? And then the brands on the flip side, they want to just focus on getting pre-aged juice today and spending most of their money on marketing, right? Not buying inventory for the future, which is hard to predict anyways. And so that's when we kind of realized there's an opportunity to raise capital from investors, take that capital and deploy it into barrels of whiskey. And so that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years. We've been raising capital from investors, working with really, really top-notch distilleries, buying new make barrels of whiskey, storing those barrels at those distilleries, making sure that they're aging properly, and we let them sit for anywhere from 2 to 5+ years. And once they're ready and they're mature, we work with brands who then take that aged whiskey and use it in their products, right? And so we sell the aged whiskey to them, and there's a nice price appreciation there over the years because the whiskey gets better with time. So you might buy a barrel for $1,000, let's say, when it's brand new, and 5 years later, you can sell it for, let's say, 3,000 barrels when it's 5 years old. And that's really the investment model. What we're doing with ASM, we're taking that investment model and we're focusing exclusively on American single malt because of the fact that it's a brand new category and it just got ratified by the TTB. There's a lot of growth opportunities, but that growth is causing some supply shortages right now in the market. And we want to help alleviate some of that and help grow this category by providing capital to these brands and these distilleries in the newly ratified American single malt space.
Whoa, that kind of give us a whole. But I like to say I'm not that smart, so I'm gonna bring it back to the average person.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I'm gonna bring it back to the average person. The reason why this is something I want to bring back to the average person. There's a lot of people that are not smart like me that may think about getting in the industry, right? They're passionate about this. They've been doing this for a long time. They may be in your dad's position where they maybe take hold a little bit into the industry, but they're like, I want to scale up, right? I want to grow, and I really want my thing to be. So I'm gonna bring it back to just the not so smart folks like me to understand a little bit. If I come to you, I come to Rob, I come to you, Hunter, and I said, who is your ideal customer, right? Because they will be your customer or your partner indeed. Who will be the ideal? Would you target the ASM, the American single malt maker of the last 5 years or 10 years, if they've been doing this for a while? Or do you want the new guy that is right here? Or is it more the distilleries that are producing this in bulk and saying, hey, with your money, we can give you this 2,000 barrels for you and we can age it for you for the next 10 years. Then when somebody comes to you, you can actually provide it. Who is your ideal customer?
Well, that's an excellent question, and we cover the whole spectrum. So we work with, and we don't go and say, oh, you're too small, right? You only did 600 cases last year. We don't want to talk to you. We service everybody. So for somebody who's just starting out, not only will we help them with their supply, but we'll also help even guide them and 20 something years, 25 years of contacts. What we've been finding is some of these smaller guys, we've been helping out. Sometimes it's just giving them a few phone numbers. Sometimes it's just making a couple calls on their behalf. So we're helping them just as consultants, just for the sake of helping another small craft guy. But then on the other end of the spectrum, yes, we are making high volume, low cost liquid for the market. This category, who knows? I mean, it's the fastest growing category in the world. So as far as whiskey goes, so we're really excited. So we could get some high orders from some high brands, well-known brands, but we can also service the little guy. And as far as United States, we don't know how big it's going to grow. It's obviously taking off, and but there's also the world market out there. I mean, single malt in Ireland and Scotland is multi-billion-dollar brands. So we're even getting calls from countries outside the United States that we'll be servicing. So the full spectrum is here, and what we really represent is single malt. That's anybody wants to get in with single malt,
regardless of the location that they are, as long as they're willing to source it, ASM can help.
Yeah. Well, I'll give us a specific example too. So let's say now with the ratification, we're working with I can't disclose who they are, but a new distillery that's being created. It's a small kind of craft distillery. They're using beautiful pot stills. They're actually getting pot stills from imported from Europe to bring to the U.S. because in America we mainly use column stills, right? But for single malt, something about pot stills adds a lot of flavor, and Rob can speak to that more than I can. But there's a small craft distillery. They're just getting started. They're going to start making single malt. They also are going to have their own brand. So they're going to have a distillery making their own whiskey, making barrels of whiskey, putting it away and aging it. And they're also going to have their own brand. But they're just getting started, right? And they're just starting to make whiskey this year. They have to wait at least probably 3+ years before they can start selling their brand. And so we're working with them in a couple capacities. Number one, we're actually helping them find already aged 3-year-old single malt from other distilleries. So they don't have to wait, right? They can take the 3-year-old whiskey, the 3-year-old single malt, put it in their bottle for their brand and start selling their brand today and making money now so they don't have to wait 3 years, right? And when their whiskey's aged, then they'll start using their own whiskey. So that's one way we're helping them. The other way we're helping them is our fund is also going to be a customer of their distillery. So we're going to buy their barrels of whiskey that they're making this year. So let's say they make 1,000 barrels this year of single malt whiskey. We might end up buying 500 of those barrels, brand new filled barrels of single malt. We're going to pay them to have those barrels. We're going to store them at their distillery for the next 3 years. They're going to take that revenue that they got from us, from our fund, to help grow their brand. And as their brand grows and becomes successful, 3 years from now, when they need more aged single malt for their brand as it's growing, they'll just use those barrels that are sitting at their distillery and they'll pay us to buy them back. So that's how we're helping. And that's a common relationship that you'll see from our fund working with distilleries. And sometimes it's that, sometimes it's just with the brand, sometimes it's just with the distillery, or sometimes it's a distillery that has a brand.
That is actually a perfect example because it gives me really the spectrum of what the fund does as a whole. Now let's get a little technical. I think you got me more smart and questions are flowing in my head now, so I can get more into technicality. So you obviously as a fund have requirement for your customers, right? As when they come to you, you just don't walk in and go, yeah, I am Jack. I love whiskey and I want money to start something. What, you don't have to get into specific. What is the average requirement when someone approach you to go, hey, I would love to do some American single malt, but I have nothing else but that. I'm coming to you. I need money. What will be your requirement? Or will you tell, or to put in layman word, what would you tell them? Go work on this homework, and when you come, we can definitely have a conversation and be able to help you out.
Yeah, that's a great question. We look at multiple different things with partners, right? And so depending on the size of the transaction, how much funding they're looking for, we're going to be looking at, their financials potentially. But more importantly, if we're buying the barrels of whiskey, we care about the quality of the distillate, right? And that's where Rob comes in. We have other members at the ASM team. We have over 100 years of experience on the team in the whiskey industry. And so the most important thing is, what is the quality of that whiskey? Because if we're going to buy this barrel of whiskey and we're going to help this brand or this distillery grow, and we hope for them to buy the whiskey back in the future, there's still a chance that that distillery could go out of business. As much as we want to help them, right, and give our resources, like Rob said, we're not just a capital partner. We help connect them with distributors, with marketing companies. We want to hold their hand and watch them be successful. But it's a tough business at the end of the day. And a lot of brands and distilleries end up failing. And if that happens, from a fund perspective, we need to make sure we're protecting ourselves, we're protecting our investors. And the asset that we own is the barrel of whiskey. And that means if they're not going to buy it back, we need to sell it to another party. We need to sell it to another brand. And we can't do that if the quality of the whiskey isn't there, right? So it starts with that. We really want to test the quality. And that's really where Rob and the rest of the team comes in, and working with the distillers and trying the samples. So that's what it starts with. And then different partners provide different things, right? On the craft side, you have a lot of growth potential. On the bulk side, when you're working with these bulk distillers, they help with cost, right? Because they're doing it in so much volume, they help drive down the cost, which is good for our fund because we might get a higher return. So there's different things that we look at.
Now it brings me to it. I mean, it clicked now into a different question. I'm talking, obviously we're in America. Competition is a big deal, right? So you have your average competitor. Somebody can come and go, what stopped me from going to MGP? Or what stopped me from going to, maybe Barstown Bourbon Company, or some of these places where they're already mass producing things? And what can stop me to go there? And why should I choose ASM Capital?
That's a good question. And really what you do when you're dealing with these big companies is you get basically one choice, right? You're getting a McDonald's hamburger. Now, what you do to make that hamburger taste good is up to you. But for us, like I said earlier, and I probably should have explained it even further, is we really trying to work with the craft guys. So we bringing in barrels from the Caribbean. We're bringing in barrels from Napa Valley, re-scraping them down, retoasting them, and then getting a nice little hint of wine barrel aging. We're getting barrels in from Spain that have been in sherry casks. I'm actually working on single malts right now for that have been peated. So lightly
now you
peated.
You speak in my language.
So I think, yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
peathead.
right. So yeah, so I mean, we're trying to help these guys and I am as well, by the way, especially in the winter. But we're trying to help these guys with their with their craftness, and you're not going to get that from the big. And that's fine if you want high volume, maybe low cost, and it's good. But the craft industry is not about that. And then there's always the fact that if they run low on single malt, they're not gonna help the little guy. They're gonna do exactly what happened with me. They're gonna just cut you off, and I'm not the only one that's been cut off. So by trying to work with the craft guys in this and trying to be more special, I think is what separates us from them.
I would echo what Rob said. Our team is made up of previous brand owners. So we've been in the shoes of our customers that want to work with us, right? We know what it's like. We know how hard it is, and we know some tips and tricks to make it easier for them. So we kind of provide that and bring that to the table. And that barrel program that Rob's talking about is unique. So our fund has a barrel finishing program that gives these brands a menu of different barrels that they can finish their single malt in. Because you got to think about, from the brand's perspective, it's a tough business. You go into the liquor store, there's hundreds of choices for consumers to pick from. For the average Joe, right? If your audience might be maybe more whiskey aficionados, but for the average consumer, it's overwhelming sometimes, right? And the brand is trying to get that consumer to buy their bottle instead of the other bottles on the shelf. And so they got to do things that make them stand out, that make them unique, that make their flavor profile totally off the charts. And that's what we help provide. We want to not just be a capital partner and be an inventory partner. We want to help make them successful and put them in the best position possible to grow their brand, because if they're growing, we're growing and we're servicing them, and we've got a partner and a client for life.
Now let's talk about the other aspect. Speaking of funds, obviously you come in your business. That business is pretty understandable. It's always 100% malted barley. So you guys will you produce the same juice at all time. There's no specification of mash bill. You don't have to worry about that. Very easy. Nothing to worry about. You already made it to the specification to TTB. So I love when you bring out that thing, because when it comes to single malt, there's two sides that differentiate one from another. The maturation process, obviously from the brand, and obviously the blending and finishing process. Those two things, I tell people all the time, a perfectly blended single malt is gold. Versus, Scotland have been doing this for, years, right? Or over centuries, and mastered the art of giving you a blended scotch. And you're like, whoa, how amazing is this? Because obviously the quality from the barley to the distillation, and then we move on to this, this level of maturation, taking multiple sherry casks, bourbon casks, and blending those, creates the quality. And I want to see that in the market. So I'm glad you mentioned that you guys are helping these people understand how to finish and maybe how to blend the whiskey to actually be at that premium level of quality of taste. Okay, whiskey is blended, whiskey is ready, is good. What about marketing? Are you leaving that in the hand of your client, or do you also have a support for them to say, hey, we are going to help you push this product on the market to make sure that, on the shelf and those places, it is out there? Or you just, hey, you got the money, we got the barrels, we helped you set it up.
Yeah.
God be with you. Godspeed you. We hope you sell a lot of whiskey. How does that go?
Yeah.
I find that the brands have a pretty good idea of who their target market is and what they want to do and how they want to go from. Now we help and guide them, right? Hey, you should call this guy, or hey, I know this distributor is more in tune with craft brands. So we help in that regard. But it's really and this is kind of a fun part of our job, is to see some of these brands and what their ideas are and what they're trying to accomplish and who they're trying to target and why. And I think for the most part, they have a pretty good sense of how they're going to market their product. And then if we see something that doesn't really drive, sometimes the best medicine is just come out and say it. So we have to give strong.
Sometimes you have to be
That's not going to work. We've had to say
that. Yeah, it's helping guide them. I mean, it's their brand, right? It's their identity. So they have to be the one that drives that part of it. But where we help is more behind the scenes, the little operational things with marketing that in this industry is tough is distributors, really, right? You got to work with distributors, and it's your distributors who really push your product for you. But a lot of times they don't like to focus on the small craft brands, right? They'd rather focus on the big brands and just take their orders. And so you have to give unique distributor incentives. And so we'll help brands learn about that and how to come up with those packages. And also, we've actually worked with a lot of beer distributors recently. So we'll connect a new whiskey brand with the beer distributor, because what's happened is the craft beer industry has been in a little bit of a downturn right now the last few years. And so these craft beer distributors are looking for ways to get new business. And so some of them are bringing on spirits. And what's good about that is if they take your brand onto their portfolio, you might be the only whiskey brand in their portfolio. So they're going to give you a lot of tender love and care, right? They're really going to push your brand. And so if we're working with a small craft single malt brand that's looking for help, we might help them in that, connect them with the right distributor that might be a better fit than, one of the big guys out there.
That is as clear as mud water. I love that you guys took on this challenge. It's quite, it's a big deal. I've checked out your website. I know you guys are a partner with the Distilled Spirit Council. which take care of American Single Malt and Whiskey Commission. I think anybody that makes single malt, at least the craft guy, are all there. So you already have a base of kind of clientele already in that council, because all those people will probably need help and guidance to actually grow their brand. I can think of a few in Colorado already, and I mean all around the U.S. now. Is you guys are here at the right time. For all of you guys watching, I'm going to display this. Is www.asm.capital. That's what you want. You click there, you go check out their website. You can see who to partner with. You can even see their story. For me, it's always about go do your own research before you jump in. Do your own research. Understand who they're affiliated with. Obviously, knowing I tell people it's important to know who you do business with. As a father and a son, it goes without saying that family is important to these people. Family is important to Rob and Hunter. That's why they keep in the family. You want to be part of their family. Even though money is the main thing here, you are being part of their family. They know what they're doing in the industry. They have been in the industry, so they're not new to any crazy idea you bring to them and saying, I'm going to make a certain type of whiskey. This is not new to them. So I want you to keep that in mind. But I want to know, what is the perfect way for someone to approach ASM Capital, right? Is it by email? Is it by setting up a meeting with you? Or do you guys have a marketing department that people can actually go through, or brands can go through if they're, just new, to actually have at least a consultation with you and have a conversation?
Yeah, I think the easiest is going through the website, filling out a contact form. We're pretty quick to get back to you. And also just reaching out to us on LinkedIn as well, Hunter Robillard on LinkedIn. And that's the easiest way. And we like to be conversational as well. So, we try and jump on a call. If you reach out to the website within 24 hours, try and get on a call with you and see what your needs are.
Yeah, and I'm gonna quickly display this so folks can see. This is probably the easiest website to navigate, is ASM Capital. This is the website, and very, very easy. All the history, and all you have to do is just go to contact and you fill out your form. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you, because for me, it's always a good way to actually just tell the people, we can hold your hand. You have to, you have to do the next step yourself. So I'm gonna ask more of a global question now. I know you believe in this, and I know obviously we've discussed the type of customer you need, what you can provide to your customer. But as people that are providing funds now, capital for this craft distillery in ASM, what's your hope for the next 5 years? Right, let's go next 5 years for ASM and for ASM Capital, for American Single Malt itself as a whole, right? What's your hope for it, and what do you guys see ASM Capital evolving into? Right, it is a capital fund, but with all the little branches that you guys have in helping, where do you see the business grow into or evolve into in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. Our current fund is a $250 million fund focused on the barrels that we talked about today. And, we're hoping to close that fund in the first 6 months of this year. And that's kind of our goal. We raised capital last year. We've closed it. We've already started working with partners, deploying that capital. And we hope to continue doing that this year. We see this as a long-term vision, right? The category just got ratified. And really our ultimate mission as a company is to help elevate American Single Malt on the global stage, right? We want it to be in the same conversations as Scotch single malt, as Irish single malt, as Japanese single malt. Distilleries in America have been making single malt for over a decade, and there's some really, really good juice out there that's delicious. And now that the category is ratified, we just want to get the word out. We want the brands and the distilleries to be successful on the global stage. And so what does that mean for our company? We see this as fund one of many. And we see future funds down the road that are debt funds to help on the infrastructure side, right? So helping distilleries build their distillery, helping brands get the marketing budget they need. So we do have some future plans, and we're excited for it.
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting. It really is about. I think no other country in the world, and I don't want to try and sound too patriotic, but I don't think no other country in the world is in a better position to compete in the category of single malt than the United States.
We are the kids in that category. We are the newcomers, right? When I usually teach about whiskey, I tell people, to know the history of whiskey is to know the history of the world. And if we go through the world, this started way beyond from Northern Africa to Ireland, Scotland, and with colonization, we have India, we have Japan. We now are seeing Australia and New Zealand now coming up. So, but we are the new kid in the domain. Even though we've been producing it have never been legally something. We are the exciting, the new, the young that is coming on the market. And I'm excited for it because I can't wait to see the genius that comes out with what people produce. I can't wait to see new blenders, master blenders coming out and bringing American whiskey to the table. That's my hope for it. But you on the money side may look at different metrics to see how it works. So that's why I asked the question.
Well, that's exactly it, right? I think we're the new kid on the block, but I mean, I look at America and how much experience we have. How long have we been making bourbon? So it doesn't seem a big stretch to go from I see some of these guys who go from bourbon and have all that experience. It's such an easy transition into single malt for these guys. And, that's that American spirit about, creating something, and that entrepreneurial spirit about creating something new and different. And you've seen it happen with the craft beer industry. So we already saw it happen. And we're going to see that in mirror image, I think, with American Single Malt. The nice thing about the American Single Malt, it's global. I mean, everybody drinks American Single Malt, and bourbon's more regulated to the United States. So as far as impact goes, it's huge. But I don't think there's any other country in the world that's in a better position to compete and to be able to make a statement in the single malt industry than the United States. We got the barrels, we've got the experience with bourbon distilleries, we got the grain. Oh, it's some fantastic grains that are doing. And yeah, so I think and just the ingenuity, American ingenuity is there. So and then pricing scale. So we can go high volume, low cost, we can go craft and really like neat niche stuff. So I'm really excited. And I saw it when you were just going on about it. I'm the same way. I get all excited about what's the potential and what can happen. So yeah, it's really a fun, and it's fun to get in our investors, the people who are investing in our fund, our institutional investors, but they love it because it's uncorrelated to the stock market. So if the stock market takes a huge dip, they're not going to get dinged up on this. So the investors are, we go to these investor conferences and they love it because they always put a little something aside that's not tied to the stock market. And this is right up their alley. So we're getting, it's a win-win-win for everybody. And I think America is going to do very well on the single malt stage.
I couldn't agree more. I think we are in a very good position. I think the world is going to be watching us to see what we put on the market, on what is out there. Hopefully we make a ding, like, I in the middle of nowhere. When you say bourbon, everybody knows it's an American spirit. So I can't wait for us to come also in the scene of single malt and make a difference. In French, we say "à tout seigneur, tout honneur." You are the elder in our group, so we'll give you the last word of what will be your last word to our audience or people that come back and watch this interview about ASM Capital, and what is your last word for anybody that may be thinking about jumping in the industry and maybe partner with ASM Capital. We'll start with you, Rob, and then we'll go to Hunter.
My advice is, it's ingenuity. American ingenuity is famous throughout the world. I've traveled all over the world, and we don't realize how special we are as a country. We really don't. And American ingenuity is, it's world renowned. So I would say don't ever let anything stop you. If we are the leading country, and we are in a great position. And as far as investments, so I said earlier, I don't know nothing about investments, but I do know it's good to get in early. And this is a time. You think bourbon 1933, right? We are in that position right now with a global category. So I would say, hey, if you got a good idea, go for it.
Oh, that a lot of people are commenting on Instagram saying they can't wait to rewatch this. A few distillery have joined through to look at what we are doing, so this is good for us as a whole. A lot of people are going to come rewatch this. It will be on YouTube. It will be on LinkedIn for all of you guys. It's easy already. It was the easiest person to find on LinkedIn is Hunter. By the time I put Hunter, he was the third person that showed up. So he's easy to find. ASM Capital also is have their social medias, so you can go and follow them on their social medias as well. Kind of keep up with what they're doing out there. But Hunter, in last words.
Yeah, just thanks for having us on. Really appreciate that and getting the word out. I hope next time I don't have coffee in the mug, but whiskey. And
Same thing here, and peated whiskey for Rob.
Yeah, peated whiskey for Rob. But no, yeah, thanks for having us on. If anyone's interested, reach out. We'd love to chat with you about what we're up to. And for all your listeners that are, whiskey enthusiasts, try some American Single Malt. There's a lot of awesome stuff in the market right now, and there's more and more joining every day. So,
guys, I can't thank you enough for making time to come and chat with me. I will repost this later on my stories for people to come back and listen. This is a was just a fantastic opportunity to just have you guys know who you're doing business with. For me, that's the most important. I tell everybody, you can do business with a lot of people, but it's better if you do business with someone you really know. Trust is everything. And to actually establish a long-term business, you need people that you can trust that will support you to the ups and the downs. Again, family is right here for me. Family is important. Where I grew up, family is everything. And when you talking to a father and a son, you know that somewhere along the line, there is somewhere where you belong. So 250 million is not a small change. So jump on it now. And like Rob said, get in early, right? Always get in early, because we don't know. The economy is a fickle thing. But now we have the opportunity. So you were thinking a long time about getting to some single malt business, jump in now. Go have a conversation. The worst that you can hear is not right now. That's the worst you can hear. Everything else is a positive. So thank you all for always watching. Again, the recast will be on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Go ahead, watch it, reach out to them. If you have any question, go bother Hunter. Don't bother Rob. Rob make whiskey. So go bother Hunter. He's our youngin here. Go bother him. Email him. DM him. Do everything. He's here to answer all your questions. And until next time, we'll see you again.